Welcome back to the Fantasy Backpack, where we carry people to championship. You get a championship. You get a championship. Well, not you. You're finishing last place this year. But, I've been getting a lot of questions about daily fantasy, and a lot of the research I do is dictated by daily fantasy, and seasonal falls into place because the same thing plays, but more on an every week basis rather than a totality of the season type thing. So I've been getting a lot of seasons. How do you pick this? How do you decide on daily players? Just people wanting to win daily leagues, and trust me, I know the feeling. So I figured I'll start with some simple strategies of how to set lineups for single games where you pick a captain, etc. So we'll get into that in a second. But before we get into that, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, tell your grandmother, tell your sister, tell your brother, tell everyone about the show. We're all about making people money here because fantasy is about making money, whether it's season long. Well, the season long ones may be just bragging rights. That's always fun. But yeah, so let's get into the single game. That'll be the first place to start because I think it's the simplest way to explain a strategy that many people can test out right away. All right, so I'm gonna move myself to the right. I'm gonna move myself to the right so I don't cover the players on the left. So for this game, I picked New Orleans versus the Rams. I think this is the easiest game in terms of picking players because you can actually get good players into your lineup. So, fourth single game, the format with the captain, picking the captain. Right? So if you go into this and you pick the game and you're looking at the game and you're seeing, well, Todd Gurley is a beast all day, every day. Right? Right. Alvin Kamara is a beast sometimes, every day, but not all the times. Jared Goff has been okay, but when Gurley goes nuts, etc. So you're going down and you're going to try to fill out your team, right? Just picking stars, picking the good players, going through picking the players. You're going to put a little Gurley, a little Kamara, a little Thomas, a little Cooper Kupp, because he's back this week. But here's the thing. You only have $2,910 left to fill out 2 spots. You ain't gonna make it work here. So let's go back and look at this logically. So when you pick a captain and you put the captain in the captain's spot, his score is times 1.5. So Todd Gurley's score would be times 1.5. But here's the kick. Here's the kicker for that 1.5 score that you're paying for. His salary is also times 1.5. So you are now picking a guy that's ridiculously expensive, which makes it hard for you to fill out quality players on the rest of your team. So although most people try to do something like this, where they pick Gurley, put him in the top spot because they want that 1.5 for Gurley, then they'll go down and they'll start with like a Cameron Meredith or whatever. These are not fake real players for me right now. Cameron Meredith. That way, now you see you have 7,350 for other players to fill out. See, that is the wrong and most S9 strategy. Yes, you want to get the top players, but here's the deal. You have to kind of fade the top money getter at the top. You have to try to beat this Todd Gurley. You have to try to make other players come close to Todd Gurley. That way you're not paying 1.5 times for Todd Gurley, because then it allows you to fill out your roster better. So, for instance, right, Todd Gurley is 31 and is 18,600. I can't mess with that, right? So I'm gonna go down and I'll be like, okay, so I want a running back. Give me Mark Ingram at 9,000. So now I put Mark Ingram at 9,000. He averages only 13.2 points, fantasy points, sure, but you 1.5 times that, and now it's goes close to 20. It's close to 20. So now I'm getting closer to Todd Gurley, and Todd Gurley is averaging 31.6 points, but the New Orleans defense is really good. So you're taking this 30 and then automatically off the top, just out of respect of really good defense, you're going to knock 10 points off. So now we're at 21. So Todd Gurley, if he's playing against a really good defense, we're knocking 21 off. All right. But you're going to tell me, listen, you put Ingram in the top spot, and he's also going up against a really good run defense. Yeah, I don't think so. The Rams are a good defense, but they haven't been a good defense. They're really strong up the middle, but I see this game being a game where Sean Payton and Drew Brees are like, you know what? Bump the middle. We're going to run up the middle just to show them the middle, but we're going to pass it. We're going to throw a lot of screens. We're going to run a lot of routes on the outside around the tackles because their strength is up the middle. So you have to really get into the games. And this is where a lot of research comes in, a lot of understanding how games work, how maybe the coach work a little bit, because you can never clearly understand those things. But that's the way you evaluate lineups. You don't just throw the best guys in there just because. You have to try to fill it out at the most economical way for your team to then average out with top players who you think are going to do well. Now, this game is a little easier, and that's why I chose it, because you can actually get all positional players in here. Whereas other games, maybe I'll show you another game in a second, you have to then evaluate defense and kickers. There's a reason they put kickers back into this when most of them try to get rid of kickers. You have to try to pick the highest rated kicker that's beneficial to you and for you. Don't just try to say, oh, it's a kicker. No, they're a big part of your strategy. So let's finish up the strategy here. And this is going to be, you know what, I'm going to actually do this lineup. Now, what I would suggest is you get an account and you put $20, $25 into it. And for the first 2 weeks, you go into a crap load of 25-cent accounts and you use different strategies. You try out different things. You look at my videos, you look at other people's videos, and you try to take from them and you try to build your own strategy. But I'm going to show you something that's worked very effectively for me. So we put Ingram in there. That way his salary makes sense for us. Because it's only 1.5 now, and it's not nearly what Gurley is for one player. So now Gurley's salary is at $12,400. Now I still don't want, what I now want to do is pick the offense I think is going to be best collectively. So I think New Orleans is going to have the best offense in this game, and it's going to start with their running backs and their run game. That's my choice. Your choice might be different, but that's what my research tells me, especially with the Saints at home. So I'm going to now add Kamara at now 9,600. And this is something that I think everyone should do. If let's say you go to the Vegas lines and the games are projected to be high scoring. If the games are projected to be high scoring, you want to get both quarterbacks in your lineup, especially for single games. You want to get both quarterbacks in your lineup because they're the facilitators. They're the ones that's most likely going to average out no matter what happens, unless it's the running back, unless they're only independent of the running back and defense and kicker. But you want to get both in there. So now I want to add Breeze and I want to add Goff. So right now that leaves me with $5,400 to spend on 2 players. Each $5,400 each on 2 players. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, Woods is at 8,000, Thomas is at 9,000. So I can't touch any of these guys. So now I want high volume, high likelihood plays, right? So I'm going to go and this is the week I think Traquan Smith goes nuts. So Traquan Smith is underneath the value of which I am presented right now. It's 5,400. So I'm going to pick Traquan Smith. And now that goes up to 6,000. So with that 6,000, that then leaves me, I can then pick decent players, not the greatest players. So then I'm looking and I'm like, okay, Traquan Smith there cost me 4,000. He only averages 6, but I think this is the week he can actually do well. So then I go down and I look at the Saints, and I can either go with the Saints defense or, Josh Reynolds did well last week, but he only did well because Kupp's been out. So I'm going to pick the one guy that for some reason Sean Payton likes to insert on the goal line. I do not know why. So I'm going to pick Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is a quarterback who gets a lot of work on the goal line for some reason this year in Sean Payton's offense. So I'm like, he only cost me 1,600. So here's the beauty of Taysom Smith, right? If I put Taysom Smith in here, and it's gonna leave me with a remaining salary of 4,400. Now, if you don't want to do the lineup the way I have, then you take Traquan Smith out, and look what it's done. It's opened up Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp. Now, this is what I will say to that. Sure, I can fill in one of these guys, and I think I'm going to actually do that. That's actually not bad. Instead of Traquan Smith, I could put Michael Thomas in and still phase in Taysom Hill. So what I've done is I filled in one player from the other team, the quarterback, and I filled in two quarterbacks from the other team, Taysom Hill and Drew Brees, who I think Taysom Hill could score a touchdown. That's what I'm hoping for. So that's the way I would do this lineup. That's the way I go about it. You don't want to put your captain as the highest paid guy. You want to try to anticipate who the guy that can score a lot is to fill that spot with the lowest amount of salary. So what I'm going to do now is go into another game. That way I can show you how to fade in and out kickers and defenses, because sometimes you need to do that. This one is easy because I actually have position players that I like. So let's just enter that. Let's enter it. We're good. Your lineup has been entered. Beautiful. Okay? All right, so now let's go back and find another one. So now we're in another game. We're in Green Bay versus New England. There was no other game that I could select from that I want to, that I could have shown. There is no other single captain's game. So let me use this one, and I'm doing this right now since I haven't finished all my stuff yet for Daily Fantasy, all my research. I'm just showing you this as strategy, so I'm going to go through it with you. You're going through it with me right now. So right now, you're looking at your lineup, and you're like, this is going to be a quarterback-heavy game, as this is really, these two quarterbacks cost the most. So I want them in my lineup. I just don't want them to be the captain of my lineup. They just cost way too much, and a lot of these top-end players cost way too much for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a player like Jimmy Graham. The Patriots have been bad against tight ends. I just noticed off the top of my head from doing other research. The Patriots have been bad against tight ends. So I'm thinking he can get 70 yards and a touchdown. So let's put Jimmy Graham in as my top guy. Now, what I want to do is, and I would never get away from, is I want to then put Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in my lineup. I have to figure out the rest of the way of what goes, but I want these two quarterbacks in my lineup. I also want to put Devontae Adams in my lineup. So once I have done that, once I've put Devontae Adams, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Graham in my lineup, I'm now left with $3,900 to fill out the rest of my roster. I can't touch these players. Even though I would love to touch these players, I cannot touch these players because they cost too much. Now, Chris Hogan, you can always try to fade him, but I'm not a huge fan. I think Chris Hogan has to get lucky in order to do anything, especially with Josh Gordon now on the team. But here is where it comes into play. So, which one of these defenses do I think is going to have the best time or going to stop the other team? The answer is neither. I would pick Green Bay's defense if I had to choose one defense to put in my lineup. But this game is probably going to get out of hand in terms of scoring. I would pick Green Bay if I had to choose Green Bay. Now, what I could do is if I picked Green Bay here, Now that jumps me back up to 5,400. Now what I'm going to look at my lineup is, does that give me a guy I'm confident in to start? Yes, that gives me Aaron Jones. And I like Aaron Jones in this matchup because the Patriots isn't that good against running backs. But it's still an Aaron Rodgers team, and I don't feel completely confident in that choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out Green Bay's offense, but I'm going to go to the kickers. Now, if you're scoring a lot of points, your kickers gotta hit points, right? Mason Crosby is probably my choice for this because he's been bad one game, but that's about it. He was god awful one game. So I'd put him in my lineup. And Gostkowski, he's been missing a lot. So I'm not sure I want to or I care to put him in my lineup. But what this does now is it leaves me in a spot where I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Because who knows what the rest of these guys are. I don't have enough money to fill out the rest of the salary. And Geronimo Allison is most likely not going to play. So what that leaves me with, though, because I know Green Bay's offense very well, I am going to then say, you know what? If Geronimo Allison doesn't play, then that leaves me with MVS playing on the outside. But then that leaves me with St. Brown, Equanimeous St. Brown playing. And I want to put him in my lineup because I like going with anyone on a team that can possibly score that I'm not sure about. I could do the same thing with with Chris Hogan, but I have less confidence. Sorry, excuse me. I have less confidence in Chris Hogan than I do Equanimeous St. Brown. But that's not what I'm going to do because he's averaging 5 points. Who knows what the offense is going to do? I know the two top guys are going to do well, and I already have one in on my lineup. So I'm going to phase in 2 kickers. It leaves me with extra salary, but that doesn't matter to me. These 2 kickers are both averaging 10 points, 10 fantasy points. You can't name me another player on any team that's going to get me 10 fantasy points. Unless I could have gotten up to Cobb, I would have been okay. I would have been fine. But what that leads me to do then, if I choose to go this way, is I have a team in which I have the quarterbacks and the kickers. So if the quarterback goes nuts and they leave points on the board, I'm feeling good that the kickers are going to do well. And I have Jimmy Graham, who is my captain, and I'm thinking he catches a touchdown. So it feels like a safe pick to me on a captain. But that's what you do. And I could have filled this out better with more players, actually. But because I'm just doing this live and I haven't really finished all my research and gone through everything yet, I should be done a little bit later. I'm just showing you how to insert kickers into your lineup and make it make sense. And most weeks that you see people winning these things, they're fading in kickers and defense. The winning lineups almost always have kickers and defense. You have to play those guys. But usually they're captain, unless you're going into a game in which Todd Gurley was playing Cleveland Browns. Then he was going to be my captain because he can go absolutely stupid in that game. But in this game, because it's Green Bay's defense, or not Green Bay's defense, in the other game, because Todd Gurley was playing New Orleans defense, who's really good against the run, he's going to do well, but I don't think he's going to go nuts. So that's the strategy for single games. This has been TFB, the Fantasy Backpack. Let's go win some money and win some championships. Thanks.